Enhancement,
All
man.
right.
Improving
we're
the
gonna
process. Go ahead,
we're
Sean.
gonna start something new this week because I'm sick and tired of waiting until like 10 after. The call starts at 5 o'clock. So for all of you that showed up early and on time, congratulations.
5 o'clock.
Randomly, I'm gonna take a screenshot right here. Oops, wrong control. Those that, and this is being recorded, so anybody watches the replay later is going to see this. Oh, Stephen Allen jumped in just in time, right as I hit the damn screenshot button. Those that are on time or within time by the skin of his freaking teeth, stay tuned. You might just win something on there. So, with that being said, give me some shares, give me some wins, give me something fun that's been happening.
I have 3 real quick, and one is fun, but it's not. Oh,
I'm kidding. Give us all 3,
man. Okay, I bought a house today for rehab. Woo, woo, woo. My son got engaged on Saturday. That's the fun. Woo, woo, woo. And that book I told you about that they asked, you answered, is freaking awesome, and it's blowing my mind. And I'm super excited about some blog content and some literally. How many people ask us on our stuff? They say, where did you get my number? And they're nasty about it. Well, they ask, you answer, you tell them. I mean, it's just that book is blowing my mind kind of. So I'm super excited about that. So anyway, just wanted to share.
Awesome. I love it.
What's the name of that book?
Tell me the house that you bought is the one that came as that lead that we were just talking about last week.
Okay, it didn't. Okay. But because that will be Marie's and mine. This is a separate one, but this came from an open house that I had at the house that I just sold. And the gal came through and she's a mortgage broker. And I said, oh, that's great. You and I could do business together. This is what I do. And the next day she sent me a lead and I just closed on it. It's the cleanest house I've ever bought so far. There's no dirty diapers in it. There's no dog stuff. It does smell a little bit like dog, but there's no cat urine or anything like that. So definitely the cleanest house I've ever bought. So I'm excited about that just in itself.
I love it. I love it. Who else? Going once. Going twice.
Me.
Who? Me?
Me.
Oh,
Mickey.
There you are.
We had the craziest lead, which is one of our tenants that she keeps giving leads, and it's like this gift that's ever giving. So her friend is selling the house, and we were going to list it, or we're trying to wholesale it first. And I can understand like the margin are thin, yet you need like the real cash buyer, not us that does the hard money lender thing. And we finally suggested to the gentleman that, he could leave us the house and we could rehab it, and then we could pay him whatever the difference that he wanted. And he's like so excited. So we are kind of JVing without JVing with him on this property, and we have no holding cost, and which is like a first for us, like, no holding cost. You rehab very lightly, you put it on the market, like almost everything for us now is in-house. So we're excited about this one.
Sounds like you got really creative and met the person right where they needed you to meet them at the moment that they needed to meet them.
Yes.
Sounds like I'm repeating myself today, isn't it, Kim? Kim and I had a great conversation earlier today. That's my win for the day. Kim was my highlight. I had a wonderful talk with her. It fired me up. And then I went and dealt with 2 hours of awesome win, Mickey. Awesome win. Who else? Going real quick.
We bought a house
you
today.
You squeak in and then you want to share? Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jacob.
We bought a house today, owner finance. She only wants $360 a month. The taxes are $120 a month, and the insurance is like $65. And I thought it was going to be like a very ugly house, but I walked in and probably wasn't as clean as yours, but we don't have to touch it. It's very nice, and it's probably going to rent for like $1,000 a month, owner financed. And I think I'm studying to be a real estate agent, so I don't have to wait on Jordan's girlfriend to unlock doors for us anymore.
Awesome. Good win. Good win. All right, Steven, wrap us out.
Got a yard maintenance guy to write a blog for me.
What?
I got a yard maintenance guy to write a blog for me.
A
Blog
yard
post for me.
maintenance guy to write a blog for you.
Yeah.
You don't live anywhere where I live, because our yard maintenance guy is not writing no blog. He can't even understand me when I talk to him.
It's
I
a
need
nice
Marie
looking one.
and
So.
Itzel to come translate for me. Pretty cool. I'd be curious to hear, but I asked you to wrap it out for us, and that was like the worst rap record I've ever listened
Sorry.
All right. Well, with that being said, I'm going to, for once, shut my mouth, not talk for the next hour, and do something I don't do very often, and that is kick it over to somebody that, if you guys don't know him, his nickname is the Google Nader. The Google Nader. The man that single-handedly changes the Google algorithms to favor his doings and what he says to do. So I've come to learn that when Roger speaks about SEO, you just follow what he says and it works. And you don't deviate from the system, because the Google Nader kind of controls the outcome. So with that, Roger, take it away.
Yay,
All right, well,
Roger.
Yeah, that was a good. That was a good intro, man. You got me going. Just every podcast that we do every week, this is how I start.
I think I just
like get
blew
my
the whole
confidence
load.
going. So I love it. It's all good. I'll take it. It's all good.
I think I blew the whole load for Wednesday. I'm gonna have to come up with something now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the good news is I'm no different than you guys. Right? It's like there isn't anything out there that you can't learn around SEO. Everything that I've gone through is trainings, applied, get a list together, and take action. There's nothing there that's a secret. In fact, it's all public. It's all out there. So I was thinking about this presentation and what we're kind of doing. Me and Sean were kind of going back and forth and brainstorming. And I was going to jump directly into a presentation that showed a lot of action items that you need to take right now and things that you should do that we usually talk about. There's a lot of recordings on it. It hasn't changed. But when I kind of sat and really thought about it, a lot of our clients, you guys that are sitting here, are already taking a lot of action, right? You guys are already kind of following the process. Some of you guys are already seeing the results of some of these action items that we've given you in the past. So what I wanted to do and what I felt was probably right that I've probably have held back on, and it's more because it's some of the stuff that people don't talk about because it's not sexy, right? It's not the actual thing that's making you take action and get results. It's actually taking a couple steps back and kind of looking under the hood and see, why is this happening? Why did we get to this point where we can actually take these actions and something's happening? Because there is a thing that if you don't take a certain steps at the very beginning, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how good your content is, how good anything else, your backlink portfolio is. It doesn't matter. You just won't rank because you haven't done those first things. So I think we kind of left that off in the past because Top Results has actually taken care of you guys. But what I'm learning as well is that you guys are entrepreneurs and you're not going to stop. You're always going to keep going. There's going to be other businesses, other ideas, and that's what we keep getting a lot of. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity on this particular presentation, just take a step back, lift up the hood, show you guys what's underneath and the value of what the core foundation looks like, and then why you're able to now take the steps of creating good content, creating a good backlink portfolio, and why then the websites start working. You also kind of discover that some of these websites that maybe you had in the past, you kind of question it. It's like, hey, I have good content. I have backlinks. I don't get it why I'm not ranking. Well, today's presentation will also kind of hopefully help you understand why those websites, your past websites, haven't ranked. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. I'm I'm more of a talker when it comes to presentations that I've learned. I haven't done many, but the past year I've done a ton, and it kind of goes. But I did create some slides. Sean kind of made me create some slides, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Just a couple slides, but I will be bouncing back and forth. I want to show some examples so you guys can see what I'm talking about, and hopefully can get a good conversation going towards the end with some questions. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, guys. So right here, basically what today's kind of educational piece that we're going to be talking about is basically the basic SEO training you need to know before making any type of investment, whether it's monetary or time. Time, I mean, is super valuable. Your money, right? You work really hard for your money. So you need to know where you're going to spend those marketing dollars and that time that you have, right? You don't always want to kind of spend all that time in your business. You want to work smarter, not harder, obviously. So this particular presentation today hopefully gives you the foundational starting point around SEO and your digital marketing on how you can do that, okay? So what we're gonna be talking about is what you see on the screen here, the 3 pillars of SEO. So these 3 pillars of SEO is basically all around. If you've done a little bit of research, you've probably heard there are about an estimated 200 ranking factors that Google uses to determine where a certain website is going to rank within the Google search results. So during this presentation, we're going to go through all of those, and I'm going to show you how all those 200 ranking factors can actually be bucketed into 3 pillars. Now, 200, you think about it, some of us can't even get through 1 or 2 tasks a day or a month or even a quarter sometimes, right? So it's very difficult. So imagine trying to deal with 200 ranking factors or a list where you got to check a box and see if you have every single little thing. Well, I'm here to tell you that even though we bucket these and we prioritize them into 3 main pillars, it's easy because you don't have to hit every single one, right? You don't have to hit all 200. It depends on what business you're in and what your strategy. Your strategy is very important because it'll save you time on which ones of these 200 you need to apply and which ones you don't need to apply at this time maybe. So that's what we're going to go over, some of those things. So let's go ahead and kind of start from the beginning and look at Google, because that's the big, obviously you have Yahoo, you have all these other search engines, Bing, but what we're going to focus on is Google, just because they're the big player in the market, right? And we want to understand them. And when Google, I love it when Sean kind of puts it out there, it's like the Googlenator, and tells me, gives me all this confident stuff that he's talking about. But in reality, guys, this stuff is out there and Google's putting it out there now. Not everything's out there. What's out there is the data of people that are testing, okay? And that's what you need to go after. You need to go after and find the people that are testing. Top Results Consulting, we consistently test. Not only that, we're a part of many groups. Between all our team, we're part of hundreds of different groups where we're getting all this data, right? So we're able to make decisions on how we're going to build our platform and help our clients with their strategies. So to understand Google, you need to understand that Google is a business. Number one, they are a business, and their business model is basically, number one, they want to be able to provide the best search result for any searcher, the best search result in milliseconds. Okay, so think about yourself, put yourself in that seat where you're on Google and you're doing a search. Are you willing to wait a minute? Think about that for a minute. When I say, are you willing to wait a minute? We're so used to say, hey, wait a minute, I'll be with you in a minute, right? Well, when it comes to digital, when it comes to online and a search engine, nobody's willing to wait a minute. A minute is an eternity when it comes to online, right? So Google needs to produce the best possible answer for you when you're asking a question on Google in milliseconds. And the reason they want to do that is because that's their business model. If they can get you to come to their platform and ask questions and they can produce the best possible result for you, you're probably going to come back. And how do they make money? Well, every time someone comes back to the search engine to use it for a search, as a search tool, they get an opportunity to put ads in front of you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for just a minute, because I want you guys to really understand this, because this is the one that I want to drive home. Stop sharing. And I am going to share a different screen. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I lost my entire tab. Give me 1 second. Let me grab.
He might master Google, but mastering presentations.
I told you, man, these slides are my favorite, I guess. All right, so I'm going to do a very quick search. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick here. Let's see here, search. All right, guys, so what I wanted to kind of show you in this particular spot is go ahead and do something like we buy. So we just happen to have a client there, so that's why I'm running this ad. But I want you guys to see when you do it could be any question, right? You're looking for a location, you're looking for anything, any type of question that you're looking for. In most cases, if there's someone paying for some kind of ad for that particular search, you'll get these little ads here. So we actually play down here. We actually play down here in the organic search results. Okay, so this, if you're looking for this, yeah, this is where we're going. But for Google, they make money here. And this right here, later we'll talk a little bit of stats, but this is where it really gives them an opportunity to actually make some money. All right, so these are very important to look at. So we're going to go ahead and click back to our presentation here. Oops, actually. All right, sorry about that, guys. I got it back. There it is. So we kind of look at those search results and basically how Google kind of gets makes their money when it comes to ads. So let me bring that up again. All right, so you want to I want to kind of continue there. I'm sorry, I kind of digressed trying to kind of get my screen back. Finally got it back. So basically we kind of look at the actual results and the ads, how that actually works. But the other thing, the other side of things that's kind of bad for Google is basically if they create bad results, right? So the other side of it is if you go and you actually search for something and you don't find it, you get a bad result, or it's not exactly what you were looking for, most likely you're not going to come back. And then Google then starts losing actual basically share, or starts losing what we call free money, in other words. And the reason we call it free money is because Google's worked very, very hard to get that flywheel rolling, right? So with time, Google's been around for a while, so they built that trust with people, everything like that. So a lot of people, it's like a normal thing to go and Google something. So if they start right now actually giving bad results, then they're probably going to start losing people that are going to go to Bing or another search engine. So for you guys, you got to start thinking about that, really thinking about that, because it reflects your content. Google's no longer doing what it used to do at the beginning when they first came out, and even at the, maybe even 5 years ago, where you can just pop up a website, put a couple keywords, and you rank automatically. Now they're in this content revolution where they're actually cleaning their search engine and getting rid of these fake websites that don't have a lot of value, because they're starting to notice a little bit of a dip, right, in their users. So what they're trying to do is actually get and rank websites that have this good content, right? So I'm going to kind of leave it there so you guys can kind of think about, when you're actually thinking about getting a blog together, think about who's writing it. So we saw Stephen just talk about a certain person that wrote a blog post. If you can get an actual expert in that particular industry writing a blog for you, that's great. Now, not all of us can get that. Some of us are actually experts in our own industry, so you can actually producing your own content is actually good. Getting the content produced by somebody else and obviously doing a review and putting your own twist to it is another kind of way to make it unique and make sure that it kind of fits your particular industry. So from an owner's point of view, what you want to be doing is basically there should be one main goal when you're actually working with an SEO strategy and looking at these 3 pillars as we kind of dive a little deeper, is you always want to go trying to rank for the top 3 positions. Now, the top 3 positions, why? Well, there's actual stats behind the top 3 positions. And then there's also stats that show that after the top 3 positions, the actual click-through rate starts dropping dramatically. And in some cases, people don't even know that page 2 exists, right? So you don't want to be in those other pages. Now, we all start in page 100 and beyond, right? It's like there's just kind of too much. If there's a lot of competition in your market, you're probably way up there. So it makes sense to kind of continue working yourself closer to that page 1. But once you get to the page 1, you got to get a little bit more aggressive and try to get to those top 3 positions. Now, let's drop into a little bit of stats when it comes to those ranking positions. Position 1, and this is stats that came out. There's not enough information right now for me to give for 2021. So we're going off of 2020, 2019, 2020. So position 1, on average, these are arbitrary. So these can change depending on who you ask, but they're pretty close. This overall, position 1 usually gets about 32% of clicks for that particular keyword. Okay. Position 2, you're looking at about 17%. And then
Roger,
position 3.
Just so you know, all we see is the slide that says 3 pillars of SEO. I don't know if you're trying to show something else.
No, we're still on this slide. We're good. And then position 3, you're looking at 11% of the clicks. Now, you might kind of, that accounts for about 60% of all clicks. So there's still about 40. You might kind of look at where the heck all these other 40% are actually going. So you have a number of things on the search results. You have ads, you have the map pack, right? So you kind of seen them on the search results where there's an actual map and there's actual results there that you can click on. There's featured snippets. So if someone has a really good definition of what you're actually looking for, Google tends to put a featured snippet there at the top as well. People tend to click on those as well. And then there's the old famous no clicks. So when it comes to no clicks, that basically represents if there was, for example, if you're looking for the time of what time it is in a certain location, you're not going to click any further. You kind of got your answer right at the gate. So that it accounts for that. So what you're looking for, obviously those top 3 positions are where you want to kind of like fight for and work for in your strategy. So after, like I said, after the top 3, that's where kind of the click-through rate starts dropping quite a bit. So you definitely want to focus on those top 3. Obviously, in the upcoming weeks, we're going to take you step by step on what you need to do to get there. So today's conversation is all about the under the hood, what it is, why, and then we can do the how in the upcoming weeks. So obviously, as a business owner, always goes for those top 3. So if you are able to, in today's kind of conversation, really understand these 3 pillars and really kind of accept them, right? Where they're at, then it's literally going to put you in a position to be ahead of the game. Basically, and kind of talking realistically, you probably be about 90% ahead of your competition. And the reason we use that particular percentage, 90% seems kind of high. You're like, wait a minute, no way. There's a lot of people kind of ranking above me. Well, the truth is a lot of those people that are probably ranking above you are not even knowing they have optimized their website. What they're doing, if there's not a lot of competition in your market, but yet you're having trouble kind of getting up in the results, that means whoever created those websites that are ranking very well literally just went and wrote, they're probably an expert in the industry. They just created a website, put the content out there, and Google really liked it, right? But what gives you the edge is that you will understand these 3 pillars and you'll be able to check more boxes. So that will skyrocket you past that type of competition and put you at the top. So that's where we're going to kind of start jumping in here. So now that we kind of understand that there are 200 ranking factors that Google kind of uses to determine where you're going to rank, and there is a way to kind of silo those into 3 pillars. Now we can kind of jump into what these 3 pillars look like and start kind of dissecting some of these items and see if it starts making a little more sense. So the first thing here, we talked about the 200 ranking factors, and then here are the 3 pillars that we're going to be dissecting today. So these 3 pillars can be broken down into technology, content, and link building. So very simple: technology, content, and link building. So go ahead and dissect this first one here. So the pillar of technology, this basically starts with, on the left-hand side, I kind of organize this on the server side. You have the hosting, server, the operating system, which is the OS for the server, web accelerator. That means if the server is using special technology to make your website run faster, and then a fast DNS. Once again, it just has to do a little bit more with how a website runs faster, right? It's able to produce faster, which we mentioned, it's one of the things that Google is always looking for, a good, reliable website, right? That they can produce as a search result for their users. Now, on the right-hand side, you have the CMS, theme, plugins, caching systems, the sitemap, and rich snippets. So all this might sound a little foreign to you guys when you kind of look at this, but this is the under the hood. There's a lot more to SEO than just kind of building links and writing content, and that's it. This is the piece that a lot of people miss. And this is the piece that I wanted to kind of drill down on, because this is the one we don't talk about. And the reason we don't talk about it is because if you have a website with Top Results Consulting or a similar agency that does and follows these particular pillars, then you probably have these already done for you. So the reason I wanted to point this out is because a lot of you guys have outside websites that you're building and you're working on, and you might be struggling with or questioning, why is this website working, this one not? Or if you just want to kind of understand how the underhood works. So let's go through this really quick. I kind of already explained this side right here, the left-hand side with the hosting, server, OS, web accelerator, and DNS. That's all to do with the foundation. So for you real estate people, you think about when you build a house, the foundation, right? You probably don't want to build a house on sand. That's not going to make a good, stable foundation. You want to build it on solid rock. So this portion right here on the hosting and server and that kind of area right there, that is your solid foundation. So if you have an agency like Top Results Consulting that has already looked at that, we've already gone through and tested many, many servers, broke websites, everything like that. We kind of gone through the ins and outs, and we have optimized and set up a server foundation that will put you on a solid rock. Okay. Now we're going to look at the right side of the screen here with the CMS, theme, plugins, cache, sitemap, and rich snippets. Over here, the CMS stands for content management system, right? So this represents what you're using, the software you're using to build the website. In our case, we actually use WordPress. So all of your websites, if you're with us, you have a website through Top Results, you're on a WordPress software, right? So there are other options that you have like Drupal. I know GoDaddy has a platform, Wix. There's many, many out there. So those other platforms, the reason we actually love and use WordPress is because it's scalable, right? So a lot of these other CMSs that are out there, they're probably managed by a team of maybe 20 to 30 developers, and that's it. WordPress is a nonprofit open source, meaning there is a lot of some of the best developers in the world contribute to this program, right? It is managed by a group, a nonprofit group, but it is open for all the top developers to contribute and improve this platform, which allows us to give you guys a platform that's scalable, for future proof, right? So that's why we use that CMS. The next thing that you see here is the theme. So the theme, there are many themes that you can use for WordPress, but something that we look out for and make sure that we're covering you guys is that we don't want a theme that's completely bloated, meaning it has a lot of code that's going to slow down your performance of your website where Google doesn't like it. That is an absolute killer for your online presence. That's why I say, if you don't do things right in each of these pillars, one of these can completely be catastrophic for your online presence. So choosing the right theme. We've already kind of gone through that. We actually use a theme called Divi that has a lot of the bells and whistles already built into it. It's reduced the bloating of the code, and it allows us to add more functionality without adding too many more plugins, which is the next item that we have here. Plugins, if you have a theme and right out of the gate, it requires 7 to 10 plugins to even work, that's bloating. That is just going to kill. It doesn't matter how good your content is. If Google can't load that website properly, it kills the entire website. So these plugins actually are additional kind of tools that allow the website to add more functionality. So for us, we are very, very careful that first of all, we have a good theme that runs a lot of functionality already, and then we can actually have the ability to add plugins later that doesn't bloat the website and continues to stay in Google's kind of good graces. So we can continue to kind of rank very, very well. Now, the last three that I have here, caching, is basically an ability to kind of run the website faster. It almost clones a version of your website. So when it's on a search engine that people continuously come to your website, they actually see the last version of it that they checked, maybe last time they visited your website. It helps it load faster. Sitemaps. Sitemaps are very important, something that you guys should know about, because sitemaps are what helps us index your websites. So a sitemap, you do need a plugin to generate. It's almost like a list of all the pages on your website. It's kind of encoded in code. And then we submit that over to Google so they know exactly what pages are on our website and they understand what the structure of our website is. And then the final one that we have here, rich snippets, those are just snippets of code. Those are more advanced. It's called some of these that can be put into the website. For example, if you had a recipe website, these snippets of code allow Google to understand that there is a step, a process to a recipe. So anything that has a process, that's where it makes sense. We usually kind of run into this situation or actually implement this strategy when we're dealing with the dominator or accelerator dominator type client, and it makes sense to implement. Once again, we don't have to use all 200 ranking factors. We just use the ones that we need. All right, so that is the technology pillar. Now we're going to go to pillar number 2, which is one that's a little more common to you guys, that you should be a little more familiar with, which is the pillar content. Content is one of the most important after you nail down and understand the technology part. Once again, if you already kind of set up with an agency like Top Results and they're taking care of you when it comes to technology, then you can start figuring out what kind of content you're going to compete with in your particular industry. So we'll go down what this means and what Google's actually looking at. So number one, we have quality. Then we have uniqueness, word count, metadata, images, alt. I'll kind of explain what that is, hierarchy of titles, and readability, right? So we'll kind of go through here, quality. So that one can be a little bit, it's once again, I go back to, it depends, right? Because you could take an article that already exists and actually get it rewritten. But what I usually recommend is that you take one step further to make sure that it is quality and unique. So in those two go hand in hand. Number one, you take something that's already ranking on Google, that's ranking very well on page 1, hopefully on position 1, 2, or 3. Then you rewrite that and you add some extra items in there, maybe some testimonials, maybe some samples of your work, maybe your own input, right? That will turn it from just being quality to being unique. And then the next thing that you have here, word count, that's really easy. Look at the top 3, see how many words they're using, and make sure you add maybe 200 to 300 words more. Super easy to kind of make up that area. Now, on the other side over here, we have metadata, images, hierarchy, and readability. So those are more for your technical team. So the metadata, every time you send us over a blog post or we're building your website, there's an area on the back of the website that allows us to put a little bit of a snippets, 1 or 2 sentences that we get to tell Google what this page is about. That data helps them actually understand your website better. Most people actually do not do that at all. We tend to take, we look at your content, we make it easy. Take maybe the first sentence, maybe, we look through it and find a sentence that makes sense. But that right there puts you check another box. You basically, out of those 200 ranking factors, you check another box. So that if everybody's doing the same thing, you're actually doing one more thing better, which will improve your rankings. Next thing we have here is images in the alt text. So images, unique images, can't make it easier than that. It's okay to use stock imagery. If you're gonna stick with stock imagery, I would suggest that you pop it into an image editor and add something different, even if it's a overlay of a color or adding your logo to it, whatever it might be, that will make it a little bit unique. But the best way to kind of get some value out of this is to take your own images. And then another technical aspect is this ALT, the alt text. Basically, that's us. Every time you send over an image and we add it to your website, again, we add a little bit of content to tell Google what this image is about, and they love that. That helps helps Google understand what the image is about, how it's related to the page. And once again, you check another box, helps your rankings. Hierarchy of titles. We're going to be getting a lot into this next week when we talk about how to structure a blog or a service page, because this hierarchy of titles, once again, think about a book. And when you look at a chapter in a book, you automatically know which one's the title, and you know where the content is, the body. And then you know what the subtitles are. That's exactly what this hierarchy means. There is code that literally tells Google, this is the main title, these are secondary titles, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that we'll dive a little deeper into next week, but this is one of the things that's in this pillar that is extremely important to communicate with Google what this content's all about. And then readability. So this one is a little tricky, once again, because it depends on who your audience is. If you're a real estate agent, you're going to talk a little bit different than a real estate investor, right? So there's a lot of real estate people on here. So you got to be able to deliver that message according to your audience. So that's something very kind of more individual. You got to really think about how you're communicating that. For those of you that are coaches or maybe in a medical field or something different, you can kind of see how informative you want to be or how a little more loose, right? It depends on the industry and that all, you're the expert in your industry. So that's how you're going to determine what the readability is going to be. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move over to pillar number 3 here, which is link building. This is kind of the fun one because this is the one that gets talked about the most because it's the one that basically starts giving your website and your brand votes. So there's a couple different types of links. So one of them, here, we'll kind of go through the list and we'll go back and kind of explain what each one is. You have your internal links, external links, hierarchy, breadcrumbs, footer links, and text links. So the internal links are basically links that are within your content that interlink to other pieces of content within your website. So for example, if you write a blog post and you mention your company name, you should actually hyperlink your company name to your homepage. And if you keep kind of looking through your content and you mention another topic, maybe you briefly mention another topic that you have a blog post on your website, is just not, it's not fully explained on here, you should hyperlink that sentence or that word and hyperlink that over to that blog post. Now, a good example would be Wikipedia. They do a great job of this, and they've gained a ton of authority by doing this because they have millions of different articles on their website, different languages, everything like that. So when you go to an article, every other word, it feels like it's a hyperlink because it gives the user experience or it improves the user experience, because if you had a question of what that word means, you can always click on it and it'll take you to an article that'll talk about that particular word, right? For you guys, you're probably talking about definitions, you're talking about a different topic. It's really easy as you gain more content. That's why we push more content on your website, because you have an opportunity to build your interlinking structure. And what we've seen is that an interlinking structure is very powerful. So sometimes it's very hard to get what's on the next here, the external links, which are external bloggers or websites that you go to and you give them free content so they can mention you, or they'll just kind of mention you because maybe you did a podcast with them or anything like that, right? And they link back to you. That's a vote to your brand. But sometimes those are really hard to get. So when you're first getting going, having a lot of content, being able to interlink, that can help you out with those link building process or the link building portfolio. What we've seen is that 3 internal links represents 1 external link. So if you do you have a lot of good content and you have a good interlinking strategy, you might not even need external links. That's the reality of it. And Google loves that because it kind of, if you have good content, it's already going to put you up there. But when it puts you up there and people start clicking on your articles and give people more value, and they'll know because people click on those hyperlinks, those inner links, and they'll go to those other articles and they'll start spending time on your website, more time, that's going to tell them that you have a good structure and they'll improve your rankings. So the next part that we have, external linking, those are just votes, right? Those are kind of going out there and kind of working those external websites to mention you. So there's numerous ways to kind of go about it. You can do a guest blog where you actually produce a piece of content, you give it to a blogger, they put it on their website with the permission that they'll link back to your website, right? So that way they're linking, they're giving you a vote. That's great. Google loves that. The other thing is you can do a press release. So if you have something happening in your business or you just want to introduce your business to the internet, right? You just want to say, hey, we're here. You can write a press release and you can have that syndicated to hundreds of websites out there, even though it's the same piece of content, it's actually syndicated to news websites, and then they all link back to you. So that's a great way to get a good punch when it comes to links. And then another easy win that you can do is citations or directories, right? So when you go out, if there's a local directory where you can actually put your business, and it's a structured directory, right? Where you fill out an application almost or a form, and then it actually puts a profile up on the internet. That is a directory or a citation. They do allow you to put your website. That's a link back to your website. So depending on how much authority that particular directory has, it will give you a strong backlink back. And in some cases, if these are high authority, high traffic websites, you'll even get good traffic from those citations or directories back to your website. So those are awesome. The strongest citation that I usually recommend and I push for you guys to get is the Google My Business profile. That is Google's directory or citation. So that's one that you definitely want to get. And then we kind of start moving to hierarchy here. And this is just the quality. We kind of talked about internal, external. It's just how you rank the quality of those backlinks. So that depends. Obviously, if you're going after websites that have a lot of authority, a lot of traffic, a lot of popularity, then those are kind of your high authority, your hierarchy. And if you're going after smaller kind of directories that don't have a lot of attention, but it gets you a backlink, those are lower. So you got to prioritize how the hierarchy goes. Breadcrumbs, that's more for like a e-commerce website. It's easy for someone to click on a product and go through, and you always notice that there's a little breadcrumb. It just helps Google understand the structure of your website, the flow, how people are traveling through the website. And then footer links are basically the links on the bottom of the website. Those basically, the way Google treats those is basically the most important pages on your website is what it looks like. Obviously, the navigation bar looks like, but if you put them in the footer, and that's why you see a lot of, sometimes when we're working with you guys, there's still a lot of links on the bottom in the footer. More modern websites, they leave those out. Well, more modern websites aren't going for SEO. SEO websites, you'll see a ton of links in the footer because we're trying to show Google that these are very important pages on our website. So that's why we put them in the footer. And then text links. Those are just links that you can get a lot like the backlinks from guest blogs. You can actually add if there's an existing blog post or something that's existing, a resource that's existing somewhere, and you just feel like your company is a good fit for them to mention on the existing piece of content, you can actually ask to have your link be put in that article. And what they'll do, what the owner of that article will do is just pick a word within their current article, and they'll hyperlink your business, your link to your website. So that's what that text link is. So those are the three main pillars, guys. It's so you start with technology. A lot of you guys here don't have to worry about that. We're kind of taking care of you on that end. But if you have an outside website or something, now you know how important that is. And there's more to SEO than just the backlinks and content. But then you have pillar number 2, content. We'll talk about that next week. That's what we're going to get into, a lot of content strategy. And then in week 3, I'm going to dive deep into this link building and Google My Business. So with that, I'll go ahead and change it to the end here, stop sharing. And we can go ahead and switch over to some questions.
Nobody's got nothing, huh? All that information, nobody's got nothing.
So Roger, I mean, we're doing all those blogs, right? Mm-hmm. And so you were talking about the quality of the blog itself and how the pictures, if the picture are unique, which is usually our project and all, then it means that our blog should kind of be heavier into the SEO, like rank higher?
Absolutely. So for you guys in particular, you guys are right now doing a great job the way you're structuring everything, right? So right now you have unique content. You're getting, you guys are writing, or you're getting a blog writer. I can't remember if you're getting our writers to write it. But what we're doing, we're presenting it like you wrote it. So the way the blog posts are presented for most of you guys that have kind of content packages with us, we present it like you wrote it. So already it's unique and being written by the expert, right? Number 1. Number 2, if you're producing or you're providing your own images like you are, Mickey, then that's a whole nother level. That's awesome because that's going to put you at another level of where it's at. So I'm not sure. I would need to look at some of your blog posts and kind of check with the team, but there might be an opportunity as you guys that are producing in that challenge where you're producing a bunch of articles this month, that there's an opportunity to start building that internal linking strategy. That's the next level. And that's what, if it's not moving the needle, that's what's going to move the needle a little more.
So the hyperlinking, you were saying it's like words, you hyperlink the word, not necessarily putting in the link of the other blog.
Correct. So what you're doing, for example, you're writing a blog on foreclosure on your website, right? And then on your website, you're going through and you're kind of talking about foreclosure. You mention your web, just an easier interlink. You mention your company here at my company, right? Aiken Developers, we do this. Well, the name of your company should be a hyperlink to your homepage. So that's an interlink to the homepage, basically telling Google, hey, this is the name of my company and this is my homepage. As you keep going down that content, you might mention divorce. Maybe, hey, if you're going through a divorce and now you're dealing with foreclosure, you just mentioned divorce. You're not going to talk about divorce, but you mention as a byproduct of foreclosure or whatnot, right? But the word divorce, you can then hyperlink that to your divorce article that lives on your website as well. And you just do as much as you can, depending on how much content you have. And that's why it's not always, when we talk about content, how many pieces of content you have on your website, it's not always the number, right? It's the quality and how you can use those things. But if we have nothing to play with, that's why sometimes we don't give. And I wanted to do this presentation first because it's hard to really understand why you're even creating content, right? So you're saying, all right, I'm going to create content, they're all going to rank, but there's a little more, right? Our plan is to get content on a lot of you guys' websites, then come back, see what you guys created, and then guide you on how to interlink, right? Which would be the next step. And then the next step, obviously, images, the next step. And we just go down the pillars of the different tasks that we can tackle. But the first thing is, without content, we can't really even talk to you or really show you how to do interlinking because we have nothing to interlink. There's nothing there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Add to
What's
that, to add to that real quick, taking a little step deeper here, right? Mickey, let's say you write an article on, actually I'm going to use Kim's example because it's really fresh in my head. She's targeting pre-foreclosure, right? And she's going to write an article that's really just around the general topic of pre-foreclosure. But somewhere in that article, she mentions there's 3 steps. I'm just throwing a number out here, right? Maybe she mentions in the article, there's 3 steps to stopping a foreclosure. Well, another blog that she could write is breaking down those 3 steps and what each of those steps are and what needs to go into those and how do you kind of execute on those. So in the main blog, the big general picture of pre-foreclosure, where she mentions there are 3 steps, that phrase, there are 3 steps, could be hyperlinked to that other blog that takes it deeper in the process. That's
so
another form of now we're interlinking content to itself because we're guiding. What it helps do is guide the reader, the searcher, deeper into our process, right? Because if you just left it as, here's the pre-foreclosure process, here's how you stop it, there's 3 steps, and we never answered that question, Kim, where are they going? I told you this earlier. Where are they going, Kim? Unmute.
Nowhere.
Who'd you just prime them up to go see?
Somebody else.
Your competition. Because your competition, I bet, wrote an article on the 3 steps to stopping foreclosure, right? Or whatever it is, insert whatever that is. They're going there because they're going to be like, okay, well, what are the 3 steps? And you don't have that content piece. They're going to go back to Google and they're going to start typing in, what are the 3 steps, right? And they're going to find another article by another company, and that's where they're going to continue their research.
So what happens if Kim makes a video on that as well?
The best thing you can do in that case is add that video to that page. You're just adding more value to that one page. And it's okay. It doesn't always have to be when we talk, because it is kind of, you can also do overkill on the interlinking, right? You just got to kind of see what the user experience is going to be. And what we've seen right now, what the trend is and what's working is taking that YouTube video that you did on that topic, adding it to YouTube. And we kind of talked about that as well, where you kind of, optimize that YouTube video, but you embed it on that page. That's just going to give you another box because you have a video media on your website and you have images. So now you're competing at a much higher level than your competition on the value that's on that website or on that page.
What kind of play does plagiarism come into your rankings as well as? I'll answer that one first, and I've got another question.
So how does plagiarism kind of play into your rankings?
Yep.
So that's that one, right, Stephen?
What's that?
Is that correct? How does
Yes.
plagiarism play into your rankings? Absolutely. So that's a really good question because it's a bit. Type it into Google. There is a major debate going on around that on both ends, and there's very good kind of reasons. There's some scary stats that say that you will be sandboxed. There's other ones that it doesn't matter. Google will only prioritize the first one. So if the oldest piece of that content, it will prioritize that one. So where we stand and what we've seen is basically that side, the one that there is, the sandbox portion of the plagiarism. In reality, it's more Google taking kind of priority on the oldest version. And then the way to outrank, say you do plagiarize, let's just to say, not that I'm saying to do that, but that's the question that's on the table. Say you were to take a piece of content and you directly copied it, right? If it's word for word, you're probably not going to do very well because Google's already going to prioritize the one that's already out there, right? It's already indexed. It's good when it scans your website, say, I already have a piece of this, right? I'm not going to index this. So what you can do is take that piece and actually add your own twist. You don't have to change much. You can actually change the intro. You can add some photos. You can add a video to that. You can add some case studies to that, depending on what the topic is, right? But add some fresh content to that. And then it's going to literally treat it like a new article is going to look at the old one. If the old one hasn't been refreshed in a long time and yours has, you basically added a bunch of new content to it, it's probably going to start prioritizing yours. Slowly but surely, you will start making your way up. And there's more factors to that too, Stephen. It depends on how authoritative your website is overall, how many articles you have on there, what you're doing, your link portfolio. But say you're doing all those things correct and you plagiarize a piece of content, you add your own twist to it, a little bit of uniqueness, you'll outrank that old piece of content. It's a big complaint that a lot of people have online. And if you look it up, there's a lot of case studies where it's like, someone just outranked me with my own content. It's like, I don't understand it. And that's basically what's happening. All they did is add a little bit more value to it.
Okay. And I know some of those articles, they don't have back references on there. And I know that links back to the original source, but you use an image or something like that, and you don't credit the author or something like that. That's a pretty big thing too.
That's huge. That's huge.
I mean, because
you don't want to use.
I mean, just it seems like some of that would have a negative effect on your site too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a negative. That's one thing. I'm glad you bring that up because we do talk about images, right? You do not want to go and steal images. That's a whole nother level. It's not content. It's an actual proprietary kind of, asset from somebody, right? It's an artistic asset. So you don't want to go and just steal images because there are repercussions to that. People can actually come back to you and sue you for that. So what you want to do, you always kind of want to look for those websites that have, royalty free images, or you take your own. Those are the only ones we actually use. When we do, actually at Top Results, we have 2 different subscriptions at 2 different companies that we pay for images. So sometimes when we're working on a project, we'll kind of dive into those. So if we're using unique kind of like paid level images on your guys' websites, you guys are good because we own the license and you are on our platform. So you're 100% safe. It's if we were to go to the internet, we just did a Google search for images for something, and we just took it. We took a screenshot even, and we put it on your website, and the owner eventually found it. They can come after you for for something, right?
And then while we're still on the image topic, those a lot of times are the biggest slowdown for loading a page. And you kind of brushed on it, but page load time is a big factor too, isn't it?
Yes and no. We make it a factor. We definitely make it a factor within our websites. Now that you guys have a little bit of knowledge on the technical pillar, right? How it all works. Now it goes back to what, actually see if she's on the call, Jane. I don't see her on here, but Jane had sent something in where she was looking at a higher level, right? She talked to somebody that was technical and they ran her website, and on one of these technical kind of tools that kind of checks the health of your website, and the numbers didn't look great, right? They didn't look great. What you're looking at when you run it through one of those tools is you got to look at it. We talked about on the technical side, your server has a ton to do with that. We already kind of handled that. We have it all optimized for WordPress websites. Then we talked about the other side, the theme, the plugins, and boom, you kind of go down the line. So if you had a website and you want it to run at full capacity according to the technical side, you literally have to have text, and that's it. As soon as you add an image, you add load time. As soon as you add a plugin for some functionality, you add load time. So it's up to your technician, basically your technical team, to make that determination on how much we're willing to give up, right, in regards to load time. So we already have that kind of mark within our team. And sometimes there's a lot of functionality and we have to fight with that, right? We have to compress things a little more, the code, the images, and really kind of work on the back end to make it load a little faster. But just know that a website that's properly built, that has a lot of content, a lot of images, maybe embedded videos, things like that, is not going to be 100 across the board when you run it through one of these technical tools. But if you have zeros or all reds, right, across the board, there is a problem. There's a balance. There's a middle ground for something like that. But speed, yes, speed is definitely a factor. Is it a ranking factor? Once again, it's one of those big debates online. Nobody knows because Google won't tell you. There's actually a video having one of the Google executives talking where they actually literally say speed is not a factor because they're talking about those technical aspects. We know you're going to add plugins. We know we want value. We want you to embed video, so we know you're not going to get 100 across the board. So don't worry too much about your speed. Just make sure it's not zeros, not red. Just make sure you're somewhere in the middle and you should be fine.
So Roger, how important truly, I mean, is the word count on there then? You know, Maria and I, so on the bottom of all of our blogs, we have the same thing that goes on the bottom that's about Liz and Marie. So, you know, that increases everything that we do, but like, what's a good number for blog count then?
Yeah, if I couldn't see the competition, if I couldn't see the competition at all, Liz, and I didn't know your industry at all, I always give kind of the rule of thumb, right? Between 600 to 800 words. That keeps us safe. That's, in our opinion, the reason we give that number is because that should be enough of a word count for you to get your point across. And that's the whole point, right? It's like we're trying to make sure that we're giving you a number where you're just not saying, hey, this is what I mean, and that's it in a sentence or two, because Google's not going to like that. So what we're trying to give you is a number where we think you'll get in depth, because we want depth. So 600 to 800 words gives you enough time to explain anything, right? How to tie your shoe. Well, step one, I'm going to do this. Step two, by the time you're done, you have 600 words just to how to tie your shoe, right? But if you were to write how to tie your shoe, hey, look at your shoelace and tie it. 3 words, 4 words, 1 sentence, compared to my article where I took you through the steps and very detailed, that's a completely different value, right? So that's why we go for 600 to 800 words. Now, if you want to get really technical and really compete for that keyword that you're going after, put that keyword into Google, right? Put that keyword into Google, look at the first page of Google, the results, read, number one, you got to read the first top 3 ranking websites, read their articles, and actually do the word count. There's tools that will actually strip the word count and tell you how many words, and then get an average, and then make sure you're within that word count.
So with that being said, exactly, and thank you for that, but that example that you just gave with the steps, is anything like that better to do, like this versus that and this many steps? And, you know, is that a better way to write an article versus just an article? I'm going to show you the 10 best steps to do this, or Does that
The
matter
steps,
in a
numbers.
flag?
In blog posts, numbers are great for whatever reason. In stats, basically, when someone goes and does a search and they see numbers, the top 10, steps to this, or the top 10, whatever it might be, people tend to click on those, opposed to just a straight, the best bike or the best something. If you put numbers and you have comparisons, because that gives someone kind of that ability is to compare, right? So if you have that, that's a way better way to create a blog post.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
I'm glad you're talking about this because I actually had to write my first blog post. Jordan made me sit in the airport and write a blog post, and I put like a bunch of the internal links going in there. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I guess it kind of come out to be what you're saying is going on here. So, but after you talking about this, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, would it be helpful for us? Like, I know everybody has their own industry, but there's a lot of like real estate oriented business here that, like, maybe on like our FAQ page, that you have like a key term page or something like that, for like that you could interlink like ARV or just goofy terms like that, like that we can, backlink to that to get the 3 interlinks or whatever. And is that a page that we can add to like our FAQs? I guess is what I'm really asking.
That's actually awesome. You bring that up, Jacob. That's once again, I like this because this is an open conversation. What else can you do? What else can you do? It's almost unlimited, but I want to kind of tap on what you just said there. An FAQ page. A lot of you guys, we'll talk real estate. There's a lot of you guys in real estate. If you had a page, an FAQ page or a resource page, right? Whatever you want to call it, and you just went down the line and you became a dictionary for all these terms. And it doesn't always have to be the full explanation. In this case, for Liz, I would say having in your FAQs, right? Having a sentence or two to explain really quick, but then having a hyperlink to a full-on blog post to explain that, like anything, right? Foreclosure. What is foreclosure? You'll give a 1 to 2 sentence in your FAQs there, and then a hyperlink on how you can help them. And the article will be all about foreclosure and how you help and how your company does it and the steps. Full on. So that is awesome. That would be a great way to utilize the internal linking and kind of give a lot of value to your website.
So just build a key terms page and send it to support.
Yeah. So if you were going to do that, what I would do, I would probably start not to bombard kind of a support, right? It's like, so you can kind of get this. I would recommend for you guys too, to make sure, get your top 10 FAQs. Get those done. Make sure you check your websites first, because we do add an FAQs page. Make sure they're not already on there. But what you want to do is get your top 10, send those over, have us add them, and then your next step would be to create individual articles for that FAQ. So your FAQ should be 1, 2, 3 sentences, and then your blog post explaining the FAQ should be 600 to 800 words.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, but you're getting into blog structure next week, correct?
Yeah, for next week, we're actually going to get into this quite a bit, Jacob. We're going to kind of break things down a little more, but that was obviously that was a great question.
So to respect time, we're going to wrap it up on here, and I'm going to stop the recording real quick.